Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. My next build is this Revell Star Wars X-Wing. Scale is 1:112. Well, this is a small starter kit, but from Revell. I thought I'd give this X-Wing a go instead of one of the bigger ones in my stash. So let's see what's in the box. So as you can tell, there's not a lot to the model. There's a clear part here, which is the canopy and gun sights, I believe they may well be. So it comes in two sprues, so you can see there the main fuselage and then the wings and guns. So there's not a lot to it whatsoever, really. I'll just put them away and then we'll have a look at the instructions. So the instructions are a bit thicker than I would have suspected. So the first couple of pages are the do's and don'ts. The next page along, it's a bit tricky to open, is the sprue guide and the paint guide. Then we have the instructions ourselves. So we have the pilot there, going down to the fuselage. This is the canopy, and it appears there's a decal for the canopy, so I won't have to paint that in. The next page, more of the build, comes with a little RTD2, and then we have the paint guide and markings. So not a lot to the kit. It's all going to be in the painting, I suppose. I'll just pull out the decal sheet to have a look at that. It shouldn't take me long to build this, but you never know with these things. So this is the decals. I'll decide at the time whether I'll just paint in the markings or place on the decals. I haven't quite made up my mind on that. So all that's left to do is jump into the build. So let's have a watch and see how well I get on. I'm going to start off by painting the main colour. So for this I'm using Revell Aquacolor 05 white. Now this is a matte white I'm using here. I'm using Revell Aquacolor 30 orange, and this is for the pilot. So the whole jumpsuit will be this colour, apart from the white patches which I'll be painting around. I'm using Revell Aquacolor 75 stone grey, and this is for the gloves and harness. For the boots it's 06 tar black, Revell Aquacolor. For the face it's 35 flesh, once more Revell Aquacolor. For the visor I'm using Revell Aquacolor 730 clear orange. Now I don't often use this colour, but it's quite a nice transparent colour. This brings us on to R2-D2. That's the little robot thing that sits in the back of the X-Wing, if you're not familiar with it. And the dome is getting painted in Revell Aquacolor 90 silver. I should add there's one or two decals to go on here as well. They're too small to paint in, so I'm going to be using the decals. Going on to the main fuselage, and I'm using Revell Aquacolor 76 light grey, and this is just to paint in or highlight some of the details just behind the cockpit. Area around the cockpit window, so the framework, this is getting painted in Revell Aquacolor 57 grey. Now it's not necessary to paint this at this stage before the canopy goes on, but it's not a bad way to do it, because that way if your brush goes over a bit, your canopy is going to hide that. And then it's Revell 06 tar black, and this is for the flash inside the cockpit, the protected area. Now onto the first assembly. The pilot just pops into the cockpit. Now you can paint the seat, but I didn't bother because I knew the pilot would cover the seat up. But it's a dealer's choice, I suppose. There is a decal to go on the helmet, so you don't have to paint in the insignia and stripes. But I won't be putting that on until everything is in place. The decals are tiny. This is why I waited until everything was in its proper location and secure. The camera won't pick up the decals, but they're just a couple of little red stripes along the helmet. The canopy has to go on at this stage. Normally you would put it on near the end, but the way it's designed, it really has to go on now. The inner clear part of the plastic is for the rear windows. There's a couple of location points for it to sit onto. And once they're in it, then I can then place in the cockpit. There's just two location points that holds this together. You just press them in firmly, and that's everything in place. Next is the decal for the framework of the canopy. Now the instructions say put that on now instead of waiting, so that's what I'm doing. As well as a few of the little side decals and detailing that's going on. I'll have 3 red flashes of decal. The other one only has 2, and at the front it has a yellow band going down. Now this is a broken up band as such, so there's just a bit from the cockpit then on the nose leading down towards the hard edge. The decals are easy enough to place on. You shouldn't have any problem. They won't rip. Well, mine didn't anyway. Next is the decal for R2, and these are minuscule. I had to have a really strong zoom lens on my lenses to see what I was doing here. They're absolutely tiny. The dome canopy on R2 is very, very difficult to fit. Even with decal softener, it wouldn't conform. In the end, I let it set in one place and then pushed it on once it was dry. It was quite difficult to do. Going on to the detailing of the wings, and the first colour is 75 stone grey for the lighter colour, then the darker colour is 74 gunship grey, and it's the parts that I'm painting are all the parts that are raised up or inserted inside the wing. So it's all the detailing bits. Don't worry if you can't get your brush in or your airbrush and it doesn't look too neat. That's all going to add to the character of the X-Wing. There's a couple of little decals to go on the wing tips. Be careful if you're doing this, what edge you're putting them on. There is a reverse side as well. So study the pictures on the instructions to know exactly where you're putting these. You can of course paint all these markings in. It wouldn't cause too much trouble. But these decals are quite nice. They appear to be a little bit heavy, but once they settle in quite well. Throughout the fuselage, there's just little flashes of colour in decal form that I'm placing on. Apart from the stabilizers or weapons here, there's these little stripy ones that curve around the actual part of the weapon. It's like the stem. Again, these are easy enough to put on. Just make sure you have a good decal solution. The solution I'm using is micro set, or you can use micro solid. That's very good as well, but that will weaken the decal more, so just be aware of that. So on things like that, you don't want it too weak or it may rip on the actual surface. So that's everything painted now. I've painted this roughly. I do intend to go over it if it needs it, but I've painted it roughly because it's a working Starship vehicle, so you want it to be rough and ready. So it's onto the main assembly, and the first thing to go in is these little intakes that will be sitting at the front of the forward positioning of the ship. Once that's in, then the cover goes on the top. Because this is basically a snap together kit, they fit really well. I would recommend using cement though, because the seams can just pop up a little bit, so you might need that bit of cement just to hold everything down. The cross piece action of it is took me 1 or 2 minutes to sort it out, but in the end it just slots together like that. It's not actually meant to go from the attack mode to flight mode. It's all in the attack mode position, unfortunately. So feel free to submit this in position as well. And once I was happy with the position, it was time to put on the weapons. Make sure you get these the right way around. I almost put them on the wrong way around. Each one has 2 little location points. You can see the 2 points on the opposite end there. And as I say, they just sit on it. Again, I would recommend cement for these because they can fall off. Next to go on is the engine, and I painted that in 76 light grey. There's actually very few colours that you use for this build, so on the areas where I haven't mentioned any of the colours, if you just go back and reference what I'm using for the darker colours, then you'll know that's what I've used on those sort of areas I haven't mentioned. Next is to fit the fuselage. That just goes straight over the centre. It is a very tight fit. You may find it a little bit tricky to fit in, but once you have the one half in position, put the other half in and just clip it in on the cone end first, then the back piece will just pop in. I've left this overnight to settle in, and it's time to add a little bit of weathering. So I'm using Tamiya's Weathering Master Series B, and I'm going to be using the snow component here, and I'm just putting a little bit on my brush sharpener, and then putting that on the decals areas and any roughened areas, either to soften up some areas or to mark them as a used area or part. And then taking the suit component of the same Master Series and just lightly going over all the raised areas to highlight them. I'm now switching over to Tamiya Master Series E, and I'm using the yellow sand component, and this, like the suit component, is just going to have a general coating all over on the raised areas, on the yellow decals, and this just gives it scuff marks and things like that, general wear and tear look. And this will bring the build to an end. So the video's a little bit longer than I normally do, but I didn't see the point of splitting this video up into different parts. So you've got everything in this video from the start to the finish to the final reveal. This was an extremely quick build. I done it over the space of 2.5 days, I think it was. But it was a very enjoyable build, and it's a good representation of the X-Wing. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other videos. If you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, that way you'll be kept up to date before my future builds. Hit the like button, please feel free to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. Up at the end of this video is the final reveal. But I'll say thank you all very much for watching for now, and I'll see you on my next build. Enjoy the final reveal. Bye bye.